Hi guys. I tried starting a video a couple days ago, like three or four, a couple times, and it just kept dying on me. I didn't have my mic on. As you can tell, I'm a little congested. Like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Uh, I got sick, yeah, Thursday night, and I just got wiped out. I'm actually getting a better camera. This one's not terrible, but I wanted a better one. This one's not that good. It's like what if I use Zoom or any of the other applications, it kind of gets fuzzy. But yeah, so excuse my congestion. I'm on the back end of it, but I mean, I just got boom. I had kind of a spiritual experience, and it was just like, man, the flesh is weak because when you get in a super high elevated state, then it pushes through all the resistances you have in the body, and then if you have too much resistance in the body, you know, it gets sick. It's got to heal. The point is to think about what the heart's doing. Everything moves through the heart. So, what is the heart doing? I guess that's the focus point on this thing, on this video. Uh, how to put this? So, uh, when you look at yourself, I'm going to try and speak in this intellectually, but it's all, it's both intellectual and emotional, right? Because if you understand something, uh, you can understand something all day long, but if you're not connected emotionally, then you have no emotional ties to it. Obviously, emotional attachments can cause you to go in directions that are, unhealthy. Uh, if you're tied to any kind of specific outcome, if that makes sense. I'll try and narrow this down. I heard a really good explanation of this on a channel. Somebody was channeling a message, and all these messages are basically channeled because they're all channeled for us at the right time for the right reasons. Uh, One, I will say that one benefit of being congested is that when I go into my son's room, I don't smell a 17-year-old boy as much. Some of you know it's not necessarily the most wonderful thing to go in and smell, unless you could clean his room. But within a day, especially after he spends a couple hours after, you know, cross country practice, then you know it is what it is. Anyway, so the heart. The heart's the only place that isn't conflicted. The mind will conflict how we are projecting ourselves, right? Any resistances we have in the body happens around the heart somewhere, and it can happen on how we're anchored in. If we're all up here and we're not receiving down here, and the reason we're not receiving down here, a lot of times, you can be connected here, but if it's not going out, not projecting that information with our voice, injecting ourselves into the people around us, then we're not getting anything back, right? That could be with our friends and family. It could be with our coworkers. It could be with anybody. You want to be able to make sure that the purity of your intent is being thrown out there, but at the same time, uh, that's where we're all connected. So it's this. There's the only place where there isn't conflict is at the heart. And so if you're ever conflicted about anything, it usually means that you're out of your heart space. So if you're conflicted about the way someone's acting, you're living in a giant organism, and this is the hardest part to accept, because if you're conflicted within yourself in some way, you'll be conflicted with something that's going on out there. So practicing surrender to the needs of the people around you, but vocalizing that and showing uh, you know, your affection for the people around you for what they need is what is going to give you that in return in the long run. Now you might say, well, I've been putting my time into the wrong people. And there's a lot of people that are realizing that. And so the only way to change that is to cut off that energy, right? Not do it aggressively, not, but just if there's not a balanced give and take relationship. Now, how do we create balanced give and take relationships? Well, we're all co-owners in this place. The truth will set you free, right? And I always hear, and this happens through readers. I heard this on a reader because people are like, well, you gotta find your truth and speak it. Well, if it's not an ultimate fundamental truth, to me, that the truth is not subjective. The truth is what it is. So if you're believing in a lie, your truth may be leading you down a path where right? So ignorance is bliss, but ignorance also is the blind. You're just leading yourself. So the blind leading the blind. Here is one. Without a balanced economy and a balanced society, where, and this is no fault of anybody's, right? This is actually a natural process. If you have, we have a consumer-based economy, right? There's less creators than there are consumers. And actually, this is a statistic on LinkedIn. When you look at LinkedIn or any other, Facebook, the number of creators is going up. But if it's not balanced, then for one thing, if you've got too many entertainment creators, right? I mean, this is entertainment purposes. So me as an individual, I don't really have the power to help create food, shelter. I could grow my own vegetables and sell them online, right? Or something like that. And God bless you if you're one of those people that's actually doing that, because you're actually creating something that the public needs, and you're probably not doing it for as much as you probably should be getting compensated for it. Especially if it's a fresh, organic thing that's very difficult to find in our stores nowadays. If that's not balanced, then the society isn't balanced at the heart space. So how do you create, if you're going to be of service to the body, so you're not going to get anything in return without being in service to the body, the body collective, right? If you're running your own business. Now, if you're working for somebody else, now you've entered into a master-slave relationship if you're an employee and you're a liability for somebody. That's why we have all these limited liability contracts. Because as soon as you create that agreement, I met with an attorney to try and create a co-ownership agreement where you've got people that are basically, you don't even need to. I could go on about that agreement for a long time. I don't want to get into it, but it's about balancing the heart space. Every single person, and I can say this honestly, every single person that I've run into in the business community, I'm always offering some kind of partnership. Hey, let's create something for the community so that it can be more co-creative on a conscious level, because we're co-creating this reality whether we realize it or not. But if we don't understand that in its basic level, then we're not going to understand some of the deeper unconscious motivations that force us to think that we need to look out for our own interests because nobody else is going to. And this is true in a lot of ways, but if you fall out of balance in your own self-interests, where if you place your needs above the people around you, then you're hurting yourself just as much. Now, that you might not see the effects of that immediately, but it will show up as stress in your life in a lot of different ways, right? And so what has many entrepreneurs have fallen into, if you've fallen out of the coaching trap, and I could talk about the coaching trap for a long time, but we're just going to call it a trap for now, because there is a lot of blind leading the blind there, where we're just selling sales for the sake of selling sales. There's a lot of people that were in sales for a long time and they got really good at it, so it becomes much easier for people to do that, right? Offer that service to help people understand how sales works and how to just acquire sales, right? It's getting more difficult now though because consumer demand's down, all this other stuff. Anyway, if you're not partnering, then you end up just being in creation mode and then balancing your creative energy with your receiving energy. And that's about all you could do, right? And in that way you learn that you are creating your own state of reality, your own state of being. If you're constantly trying to take on the burdens of other people, let's say, hey, I need I'm starting a business, I need help with this. Now if you need help learning how to do something, that's one thing, but at the same time you have to learn so many things to start a business nowadays, and some people are better at it than others. For example, I've got some friends who, and I'm not as good at it, automating everything around the business model, right? Where, if you, and this is ideal, it's much easier to do just for yourself because it's a lot easier to track your own hours, how much time you're putting into something, track your own schedule. But when you partner with people, ideally, you're all working the same, you're working the same hours, and I don't care if you worked less hours than me. You just have to be honest about your reporting. And if you're not honest, then you're going to violate your own heart, and it really has nothing to do with me. All I have to do is make sure my intent's pure and keep myself responsible for my own actions, right? Not only that, but if I fall down, to be honest about it, right? Hey, I'm sorry I wasn't able to, I just couldn't do it, right? I was dealing with something, family or whatever, right? It could be anything. So, that being said, why doesn't that happen, right? Because people don't trust. Now, if somebody isn't trusting you, let's say you're out there, say, hey, I'd love to work with you. It's like, don't take that as an offense. It just means that they don't trust themselves. Because until you know your own heart, you'll never be able to discern the state of somebody else's heart. And so you end up discernment grows over time. Your abilities grow more telepathic over time. And so most creators turn into readers, right? Because they're starting to learn to listen to their own heart and the messages that they're getting from the people that they interact with on how well their heart works. So let me know in the comments, is any of this resonating with you guys, right? Yeah. And so in a lot of ways, there's a large portion of society that have become podcasters, influencers, kind of had to fall into a state of surrender and started to enjoy that for themselves, found a way to make a living there in some way. Very hard to sell something to somebody because we're all whole. If it's not food, shelter, right? What are your basic needs? Companionship, you could say that. Now, if people aren't willing to work together in a good way, where you have a companionship and you have a co-creative project, then the only time you're ever going to meet with somebody is usually on a podcast or something like that, which makes it a lot sadder, especially when you meet somebody. Hey, this is great. This is a great, but I'm going to do my own thing. Okay, no big deal. Trust. Don't trust, right? It's a trust issue. What don't you trust? Do you trust your own heart? Because as long as your own heart's fine, you have nothing to worry about, right? Don't be the first one to turn away. As long as you're not the first one to turn away from the other. The first one to turn away is admitting that they can't forgive you for something because they can't forgive themselves of something. I can forgive you of anything, as long as you're honest. But if you start to covet, you start to hide things, it means that you can't forgive yourself of something. And so I I can't work with somebody who is unforgiving of themselves, because then they won't be able to forgive you of something. Very deep spiritual truths that you run into in the long run as a solo entrepreneur. But obviously, we're not going to get into a truly beautiful co-creative society until we fall into unconditional love for ourselves and can be open and honest with one another and just build the things that we need to to supply our basic needs. And the rest of the time, I'm like you. I want to be out hiking hillsides, be it by the ocean. And realistically, when you really think about it, when you're co-creating society together with other people, the amount of time you need to spend working with those other people to build what it is that we need to build, just to make sure that our needs are met. We have a place to sleep. We have a roof over our heads. We have food in our bellies. We have all the basic things that any of us want and need. Probably 15 hours a week or less, I would bet. Right? Most of the energy that we have in society is wasted energy. Not only that, because when you think about a business model, most of the energy is going into the central hub of that business, right? NVIDIA is a trillion-dollar company. How much of the profits of that company goes to its employees? If you look at the percentages, I think you'd be surprised. There's probably a pretty high percentage that goes to a lot of them, but that they try to take 30% or so into the upper echelons, because they're the ones controlling the direction of the company. All those companies will go bye-bye as soon as people start getting to a place of surrender, because you really have to surrender yourself to the needs of the people around you in order to have a true co-creative family. And if they're not surrendering themselves to your needs, then you have to say, look, hey, are we going to surrender ourselves to each other or not? And that's what a marriage is. Marriage supper of the Lamb. That's why it's called the marriage supper of the Lamb. You are in a state of surrender. You are sacrificing yourself for that other person. And so in a lot of ways, so many of us that have gone to work for ourselves end up sacrificing ourselves for the greater good. And we don't even know what direction that's supposed to be. And people say, well, I need to take care of my needs. Well, how do you do that when you understand that everything comes from here, and you can't sell the healing of the heart? I've heard some spiritual teachers talk about, healing core wounds. The core wound out there is always if you can work with other people in equality and set it up in the right way where everybody is respected, and it doesn't matter what stage of growth that they're at. Because growth is happening exponentially over time forever. You can't judge the position of somebody at any time and say that it is less than their position, because we're all ignorant of something. Judging each other for ignorance is judging ourselves for our own ignorance. And so that process in and of itself will fall into an unequal balance of power in a relationship, which ends up being where we're at now. So I hope this makes sense to you guys. And these are the things that I deal with on a personal daily basis. So for me, I don't know how many cycles of not, how can I say this? How many cycles of thinking, okay, what's the point? Am I ever going to get to that place where people understand where we want to go at the deepest level, right? It's going to be the easiest, the simplest. That'll create the most growth, right? Because think about this relationship, and then I thought about this argument earlier. This is the coach's argument which is what falls you into the coaching trap. The coach's argument will be, well, if I create this space for me and my client, we can hold each other responsible for each other. Because obviously, if you don't have clients, you're not going to. A lot of coaches say, well, I don't feel any need to get up in the morning if I don't have clients or somebody that I'm serving, right? Okay. So you're holding each other accountable, so there's some growth there. And you're helping somebody do something, but you're learning from them, they're learning from you. You're never going to have a situation where the learning goes one way, generally speaking, because you're learning about yourself, even if it doesn't seem like it. You are. I'm learning about myself just by making this video. But one person's needs is being placed above the needs of another. Now you might argue and say, well, no, that person's getting something, but it's not true. You're both getting something. Now, what are you coaching them on? That's the other thing, right? If you're teaching them how to play the piano, that's one thing, right? They just want to learn to play the piano, and it's if you're learning a skill set. But if you're just there for emotional support, then you haven't done the work internally to be emotionally solid for yourself, to do the things for yourself, to create an equal give and take relationship, right? Because at any time you say, well, I'm going to advise you, like if I said, I'm going to advise you, I'm going to coach you, how are you less than me? Because I have to project that image for sales, right? I have to project an image that you need my coaching, my emotional support for you, or whatever it is that I have to offer. We are a whole, right? There isn't anything in here that you don't have that I have, or that I have that you don't have. We are all whole and healed. So there's just, the disparity is always there. And even if, let's say I went to work with 100 people, co-owner business, equal distribution of profits through an hourly, right? However many hours you turn in. Let's say we all agree, okay, we're going to work 25 hours a week. But you fall short. It doesn't matter to me, because you're just going to get paid a little less. And there's going to be, actually, it increases the hourly rate for everybody else, right? Because there's less hours to divvy up the profits for that period. Not only that, but if you create a bigger, diverse group, now you've got a bunch of people doing a lot of different tasks that's creating more revenue. So as one thing breaks down, it's getting picked up by the other, right? And people that are taking time off are banking hours, or not banking hours, but I mean, we can get into stuff like that, but are not pulling profits which is increasing your profit for that period. What difference does it make? As long as you don't have people taking advantage, right? But when people do take advantage, you get to a place of discernment where you know that, and then you don't necessarily need to confront them, but they'll kill themselves if they do that, right? And covet it. Karmically, they'll start paying the penalty pretty quick. As long as you keep your own intent purified. It's like, well, how do you know that? We're living in one organism. You'll never be able to separate yourself from any part of it. It's all healing. It's healing itself. It's all trying to get closer together at the heart space. And if I were to try and keep myself isolated from you, I would be doing myself a disservice, no matter who you are. And so I need you to make the decision to turn away from me and not work with me before I make that decision for myself. I'll never make that decision to not work with anybody. But I'm not going to get into a relationship where I'm constantly just giving you over and over and over and over and over and I'm not getting anything, right? It's okay to be a beggar, but eventually you have to start doing something for yourself and have something to offer. And the only thing that right now, right, for so many of us, the only thing that we have to offer until we start building the minimal things that we need is just our truth. You just speak it, write it. I mean, I could do readings and give you guys downloaded messages, but the needs of the heart and the soul are that we, are well understood, that we communicate our needs. And what are my needs? My needs are the same as anybody else. I just want to have my Joe in the morning and have a nice place to go outside to go experience nature, have someone to love, things like that. I don't know what else to say about that. I'm sure there's so much that I'm missing, right? The way that we heal our environments and things like that. Maybe I'll get into that tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know if I'll make a video tomorrow. I never know, right? I can't remember the last time I made a video on this channel. But I'm getting a better camera, so maybe the next video I make will have a better picture. We'll see. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day. I'll get one oracle card today. Let's start. What oracle card are we going to get? Strength. White tiger. Love you guys.